Early contests build momentum for 2024 contenders seeking the White House. C-SPAN offers unfiltered coverage of events leading into early primaries and caucuses. Get access to speeches and results with the free app, C-SPAN Now, or watch live on the C-SPAN networks.
TaxAct knows you don't look forward to taxes. TaxAct doesn't even look forward to taxes, and TaxAct is a tax software company. It's basically TaxAct's whole thing. If TaxAct did things over, maybe TaxAct would end up teaching kindergarten or leading fly fishing tours. But that's a different story for a different ad. So why don't we just agree that taxes aren't fun, but you still have to do them? TaxAct's filing software can help you do that. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
When you're ready to pop the question, the last thing you want to do is second-guess the ring. At BlueNile.com, you can design a one-of-a-kind ring with the ease and convenience of shopping online. Choose your diamond and setting. When you find the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code WELCOME to get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. That's code WELCOME at BlueNile.com for $50 off your purchase. BlueNile.com, code WELCOME.
Hey parents, Greenlight is here to take one big thing off your to-do list, teaching your kids about money. With a Greenlight debit card and money app of their own, kids and teens learn to earn, save, and invest. You can send money instantly, set flexible controls, and get real-time notifications of your kids' money activity. Set up chores and put allowance on autopilot to reward them for their hard work. Then learn about the world of money together. Get 1 month free when you sign up at greenlight.com/podcast.
Welcome to Haunting History, the podcast that reaches back into the past for the events that shocked everyone. Tales of true crime, mystery, and the macabre. And when we're lucky, the stories were true crime, history, and the paranormal me. Now, who doesn't love a good ghost story, right? Welcome back to Haunting History Podcast. I'm your host, Kat.
And I'm Haley.
I learned something new recently that shook me a little bit. I always assumed that if you found a new podcast to listen to, that you would always just listen, if you just found it, you would listen to the most recent episode. And then if you liked it, you would go back and binge it all from the beginning. Mm-hmm. But you don't do that either.
No, like a true crime one, I usually just find one that's familiar to me. And then I listen to that one. And then I decide if I'm just going from there or if I'm starting from the beginning or whatever.
So most people don't even go back. They just listen to the new episodes coming out. So that messed with me a little bit. I assumed that when we're talking to people about older cases or things that we've talked about in the past, that they're familiar with it because they went back and listened. But no, apparently people, and I'd be curious for people to write into us on social media or email and let us know what they do. But apparently it's more normal to listen to, you just saw a social media post about a new podcast. You would listen to the most recent and then you would subscribe and just listen from that point forward.
Well, those aren't true bingers then, because then you don't have anything else to listen to after you listen to that one. You would have to wait a week.
Right. But just in case, if you're listening for the first time to us, I need you to go back to the beginning of one of our stories. About 2 years ago, I had reached out to the public information officer at the Orange County, California Sheriff's Office. I introduced myself as a local podcaster and asked if I could speak to the investigator in charge of the case on Dorothy Jane Scott. After a sequence of events, I was connected to Bob, who was actually out with an injury at the time, but he was the current investigator who had inherited Dorothy's case. He suggested when we finally got to speak that we do another case first, the case of Kerry Patterson, the one that I want you to go back and listen to. It's a case that they had very little information on and one that Bob felt particularly close to. He knew Kerry's sister, Michelle, and in a weird turn of events, Haley and I both knew Michelle. Since then, Bob and I have embarked on a journey / friendship. I say friendship because I don't think there's really any days that go by that I don't talk to him about something. It's not always about cases. And like today, I think we've spoken at least 4 times. And I get, he answers a call. Every time I call him, he answers it. And if he doesn't, I'm texting him being like, where are you? Why are you not answering? Sometimes it's just because he's in the bathroom and can't answer my call, which I don't know if I'm okay with that or not. Just answer my calls. he wanted us to do the Kerry Patterson case, so we did. So go back, listen to Kerry Patterson, and then come back and listen to this episode. In today's episode, it's a missing persons case from 1987. It's neither a cold case and it's not unsolved. It's very much solved and it's closed. But the case of Wendy Osborn has come up recently. If you live in California, you may have noticed a renewed interest in the media in regards to Kerry Patterson's case. The Orange County Sheriff just recently put out a press release that was picked up by news channels and newspapers. ABC7 and our local paper, the Orange County Register, both recently put out stories on Kerry's cold case. Again, like our podcast, both had asked for the public to reach out with any information or if they had any thoughts or ideas. Someone called in with a tip to look at the Wendy Osborn case. That's what's taking us back to this heartbreaking story, which it ties into other cases, and we're going to really lightly touch on 2 other cases of 7-year-olds. I don't know that they're related to these, and I haven't explored them, but you'll understand why we did this story on Wendy Osborn. Wendy Rochelle Osborn, a petite 14-year-old, missed her ride to school on January 20th, 1987. She decided to walk to Tuffrey Junior High in Placentia. She wore glasses, had braces, and carried a pink backpack and red purse. She never arrived at school, and her family never saw her again. And I'm going to read the following article from the Los Angeles Times dated February 3rd, 1987. Now, this is 7 years after Kerry had gone missing and 2 weeks after she herself, Wendy, had gone missing. A partially decomposed body was found Sunday in the Carbon Canyon area of Chino Hills, and it was identified as that of 14-year-old Wendy Rochelle Osborn of Placentia, who disappeared on her way to school 2 weeks ago. The cause of death is strangulation. James Bryant, a spokesman for the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, and Placentia investigators said Monday they were investigating similarities between the Osborn child's death and the kidnapped murder of 7-year-old Pasadena girl. And I'm going to stop there for a second. The Pasadena girl they are referring to is Phoebe Ho, a 7-year-old girl in a pinkish red coat who went missing walking to school in December of 1986. Now, I don't know why they're connecting these 2 cases together, and I couldn't find any further links to them together. I mean, other than they were both wearing pink. I don't know. They were completely different age brackets. I mean, Phoebe was half the age of Wendy, but for whatever reason, she was found in Riverside, and Wendy was found in San Bernardino. So I don't know what the connection was. I didn't explore it a lot. I think that someone else was actually found guilty of Phoebe, but that's one of the cases that we're not going to dive into. And back to the article. The full results of the autopsy began Monday afternoon on Wendy Osborn, and they were not available. The San Bernardino County Coroner's Office declined to comment on the cause of death, although early in the article they said strangulation. Chief Deputy Coroner said that the slightly built teenager's body had no visible signs of trauma to explain how she died. Positive identification was made Monday by a comparison of fingerprints taken from Wendy as part of a Girl Scout project. The teenager's body was fully clothed when it was discovered Sunday afternoon on a rugged ridgeline by horseback riders. She had been dead for at least a day, possibly several days. Tidwell said some evidence had been recovered from the area, but he declined to elaborate. On Monday, about 30 sheriff's deputies on foot and horseback continued to comb the rugged terrain for clues. The body was found near the Western Hills Country Club on a hill overlooking a construction site for several custom view home lots, just lots, west of Carbon Canyon Road, which is about 2 miles northeast of the Orange County line. I'm going to stop there again for a second. The area where Wendy's body was found was a little over 6 miles from where Kerry's body was found. Placentia police viewed the body at the scene Sunday and brought back a piece of clothing to be identified by her family members. Investigators said Monday that they had not ruled out a connection with the kidnapping and murder of 7-year-old Phoebe Ho of South Pasadena, whose fully clothed body was discovered December 19th in a wood-covered field in the Glen Avon area of Riverside County. An arrest warrant has been issued in that case for James Warren Bland, 51, a parolee with a history of sex crimes, who was last known to be living in the Alhambra area. So I'll dig into James Warren Bland later, but you'll understand why I stuck to the story that we are on right now. An autopsy showed that the South Pasadena girl, who also disappeared while walking to school, had been sexually molested and strangled. Again, no, Wendy was sexually assaulted. They had initially said that they didn't know if she had been, but she was sexually assaulted, and there was DNA of the perpetrator found on her body. Wendy Osborn was last seen by her parents on January 20th when she left home shortly after 8 a.m. to walk to school. She never arrived at Teffrey Junior High, less than 2 miles away. Her parents, Jack and Carolyn Osborn, reported her missing at 6:30 that evening. When the body was discovered, she was clad in the same clothes, a pink shirt with black markings, pink pants, and high-top shoes that she was wearing the morning she disappeared. Bryant added that the department had formed a task force to determine Wendy's whereabouts during the 2-week period she was missing. Detectives will be in contact with the police department in Pasadena and Placentia, as well as Riverside County Sheriff's Department, to determine whether there's a connection between this case and the kidnap of Phoebe Home. The article goes on about another case of a missing girl found near the area where Phoebe was found. It says Riverside County authorities said Monday that there has been no sign of a third missing girl, 7-year-old April Ann Cooper, who was last seen December 13th near Lake Elsinore. So it's comparing Phoebe and April to Wendy. That's not what we're going to do, and it gets a little confusing, but apparently the one thing this does say is a lot of girls went missing in 1980. It says the county sheriff's department said investigators were attempting to locate residents or workmen who may have seen any suspicious vehicles in the area, but few people live there. Few people live in the homes, most of which are still under construction. Which, does that sound familiar to you?
Yeah.
Kerry lived in a new housing development too.
Yeah.
So the house, it was more rural, like where her body was found was rural, and they were building houses on different lots. Where Kerry went missing was relatively rural, and they were building new houses. It goes on to say the body was found about 100 yards up a steep brush-covered slope that rises from a trail winding behind Berkeley Drive, not far from Carbon Canyon Road, which connects northeastern Orange County with the Chino area. We haven't found anything else that would lead us to anybody, he said. So all that being said, the police determined that there was enough similarities between Phoebe and Wendy to all speak together, right? So now we have Placentia, Pasadena, San Bernardino, and Riverside Sheriff. And in the 80s, they didn't have a database to connect other cases together, which would have made sense. They're connecting Wendy's case to a 7-year-old to 2 7-year-olds, but they don't know because there is not a database, and they're talking to Riverside Sheriff, San Bernardino Sheriff, Placentia, and Pasadena. They don't know to talk to Fullerton, right?
Yeah.
Where Kerry went missing. So back then, all these cases were being handled by individual police departments, and they didn't really cross county lines. I mean, San Bernardino and Riverside is talking to each other, but they're not talking to Orange County Sheriff, which is the sheriff that took over for Kerry's case. Mm-hmm. And nothing that they're doing would have pulled in Kerry Patterson's case. Plus, it was 7 years later, right?
Yeah.
It's not like it had just happened recently, like the other little girl had been found. Now, I'm trying to figure out, like, as I'm reading this, okay, why would someone send in Wendy Osborn's case? Because right now we have a girl that was missing from Placentia, but the only similarity is the age, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where her body was found, because it was rural. It's still not the same area. Tonner Canyon was where Kerry was found, and Carbon Canyon, where Wendy was found, are only about 6 miles apart, but they're still not the same place. So why is this person connecting Wendy Osborn case to Kerry Patterson case, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out, like, is there a connection to at least Fullerton, where Kerry went missing? Placentia and Fullerton and Anaheim, which comes up later, are all close to each other, but they're not the same city. So right now I'm going based, okay, they're connecting it because of the fact, the age, the girl's age, and the area where the body was found. Mm-hmm. So those two are similar. So I'm trying desperately to find a connection to Fullerton, and I found a huge one. And this is an article written by Rebecca Vesley on October 14th, 2002 on the website womensnews.org. One morning in 1988, on a mostly deserted street in Fullerton, 14-year-old Kelly, which, by the way, I'm only referring to Kelly by her first name. I'm not going to use her last name. It feels disrespectful to me. She's a living victim. And if you Google Wendy Osborn, it will come up, but it's still, I just feel sometimes we cross the line with people's privacy. So I'm going to choose not to use her last name. 14-year-old Kelly was walking to summer school when she saw a man who gave her a bad feeling in the pit of her stomach. Despite her best instincts, she kept walking towards him. He approached her and forced her into a station wagon, which, by the way, I found out later with a knife. Terrified, she asked where he was taking her. Quote, unquote, he replied, to the hills. In those deserted San Bernardino hills, he made her take her clothes off. He raped her. Then, miraculously, he placed her pile of clothes in the dirt next to her, allowed her to fetch her school books out of his car, and drove away. She memorized his license plate and took a pen and paper from her school books and wrote it down. Within 2 hours, a 27-year-old methamphetamine addict named Raymond J. Bartlett was arrested. He pled guilty to kidnapping and other charges and was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and there was no trial. The article goes on to tell how Kelly, as a college student, made a documentary that went on to win an Emmy. By the way, it's called Forever 14, which, these girls are babies.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart. She helped put a man behind bars that raped her, right? She was only 14. Her information is online. You can find Forever 14 online. You have to buy it. You can't just watch it. Beyond that, I don't really want to bring attention to the living victim of a crime. I tried to find her to speak out to her, but I was unable to. And I don't know that I wanted to. Yeah, I don't. She speaks out about it. I know that she has said in numerous articles that it's healthy for her, but I don't know that she can help this case. That will be up to Bob to determine, not up to me to contact her and dredge it back up for her. I don't have any other details of that day other than I know that she walked about 1.5 miles to find someone to help her or rescue her. And I don't know that we need to know any more of the details. But Raymond Bartlett was in prison in 1994 because he had been this is 1988 when it happened. In 1989, he was convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison. So in 1994, he was in prison. When there's 2 different articles, one says a lab technician, one says an investigator, found a mistake in Wendy's file that her DNA had not been run again. So he had her DNA ran again. It was semen that was found on Wendy's body. This time he got a hit. The match was to Kelly's case and Raymond J. Bartlett. So the DNA from the semen that they got from Kelly and the DNA that from the semen that they got from Wendy matched. It was the same person. It is believed that not only did William Bartlett murder, rape, and sodomize Wendy Osborn, but that he may have kept her captive for up to 2 weeks.
Ugh.
It was determined after the autopsy that her body had only been in that field for 24 to 48 hours, and she had been missing for a whole 2 weeks prior. I literally had a nightmare after. They don't really reference that. Like, I had to find that through like 5 different articles. They don't dwell on the fact that she was missing for 2 weeks, but her body was only found deceased a couple of days.
Yeah.
So like you have to read a few articles where you kind of put it together that she was missing for a lot longer than she was deceased. When they went to Soledad Prison in California to basically arrest Bartlett for the murder and rape of Wendy Osborn, he denied that he knew who Wendy was or that he had done it. He had 100% admitted to raping Kelly. He had told the police that he had done it and that he had only done it because his pregnant girlfriend refused to have sex with him because she was pregnant. The thing is like, we know that he attacked Kelly in 1988. So now with the DNA, we know that he attacked someone a full year earlier than that and murdered her. The thing is that we're still not finding a connection to 7 years prior. Do you know what I mean? Like, now we have the Fullerton connection because he kidnapped Kelly in Fullerton, but we don't have a connection to anything prior to 1987.
Yeah.
And Kerry was way back in 1980. So I found his birth date. He was born January 18th, 1961. So in 1980, when Kerry went missing, he was only 19. So I found another article. And when I say there's articles, there's so many articles. I found an article of where his personal parents were interviewed, and I want to read you parts of it.
They were interviewed after Wendy. They found out about Wendy or after Kelly?
This was after Wendy, not
Okay.
after Kelly. They weren't interviewed after Kelly. They were interviewed after Wendy. And it says, murder suspect's parents surprised. Despite Raymond Bartlett's criminal past, the idea of him killing a placenta girl doesn't fit, quote unquote, his mother said. This article by Jeffrey Miller in the Orange County Register goes on to say, Raymond J. Bartlett's parents had talked with detectives. They knew about the DNA evidence linking their son to the kidnapping, murder, and rape of a placentia schoolgirl. Still, the news that he had been charged with murdering the girl, Wendy Osborn, hit like a mortar blast. Ray Bartlett of Victorville said it's inconceivable that his son could be a killer. Earlene Lampshire of Arizona said she no longer knows what to believe. I think of him as a little boy who was a charming, sweet, and cute, and in a happy family with brothers and sisters. This, his mother said, doesn't fit. Raymond J. Bartlett, 34, in prison for kidnapping and raping a 14-year-old Fullerton girl in 1988, is accused of abducting Osborn, 14, as she walked to school, January 20th, 1987. Her body, which bore signs of sexual abuse and strangulation, was found in Chino Hills on February 1st, 1987. Authorities said 3 separate crime laboratories found that Bartlett's DNA matched evidence taken from Osborn's body. Ray Bartlett, 68, said his son is being railroaded. I'm wondering, after 7 years, how did they keep his blood or his semen? He said, where did they store it? How did they preserve it? If I had money, I could get an attorney and handle these things. Okay, first of all, I can't.
Well, it's like it's insane to me that they're drawing the line at murder, but like the rape and all that stuff, they're like, yeah, makes sense, but murder, not our boy. Like,
right.
What?
Listen, he said that his son is being railroaded, and he said, if you're poor working people like we are, you're stuck. Raymond J. Bartlett's parents divorced when he was 9, and he was raised by his father. Both parents said his childhood in Fullerton was typical. Remember that. Full of Little League baseball and Pop Warner football. However, a court psychologist later describes Bartlett's upbringing as dysfunctional. Now, he went to Chino High School, but it said Chino Hill High School, but it says that he lived in Fullerton with his dad. So he was 19 in 1980. Was he living with his dad in Fullerton? It sounds like it.
Yeah.
So it says that his dad said he's tall, he's handsome, he's quiet, he's introverted. He had girlfriends, he had a job, everything was fine. So he's saying, and the parents are excusing it as this, it was during a methamphetamine binge in June of 1988 that Bartlett grabbed the Fullerton girl at knife point and raped her. Within hours, he was in jail and has not been free since. I think he just did it as a spur-of-the-moment thing, and I think drugs played a part in his thinking. His father said, I asked, why did you do it? He said, Dad, I've been doing drugs for 5 days straight. So, yeah, they're willing to...
Well, because they have an excuse. It's drugs. It's not really him.
It's not really... Yeah, good point. So like I said, there's a ton of articles on Wendy Osborn and Kelly and Raymond J. Bartlett. Most of them are the same, but as in repeating the same information over and over again, but they each all had different little small tidbits of different information. So for us to connect him even remotely to Kerry, we had to find him in Fullerton, which we just did, right? We don't know for a fact that he lived there in 1980. We do know that he grew up with his father because they said he did in Fullerton. We know that he went to Chino High School, which is not, there's other high schools in Fullerton. So I don't know why he was going to Chino unless maybe he lived with his mom part of the time. But we do have a connect. He kidnapped and raped Kelly in Fullerton, from Fullerton. So we at least know that he had a connection to Fullerton, right?
Right.
In the article, in the newspaper article with his parents, this is a thing that kind of struck me as odd. We've always talked about Kerry that we wondered if her disappearance had anything to do with all the construction that was going on around her house. Like the houses were built, but there were other areas that were being built up and people were doing further work on their houses, their new houses, right?
Yeah.
So it's always been a thing with us. In the article with his parents say that he worked as a plaster hanger, meaning he worked in construction.
Yeah.
It would not be weird for a plaster hanger to be working on a new development.
Yeah.
Kerry's parents had moved into a brand new house. There was areas that were being recently developed. So the other thing that's really similar too is that the area that Kelly was walking from when she was walking to school, when he kidnapped her, was also a new neighborhood and was being recently developed. So now we have the connection of the age, where the bodies were found, the city of Fullerton, and the fact that two of the girls were walking from areas that were recently developed, right? That would have construction workers in it. And now we have Raymond Bartlett, who is a construction worker. So all these connections, right? So the one thing those are all obvious similarities. We don't know. I found a picture of Kelly as an adult. She's 22. I can't find a picture of Wendy Osborn. We know what Kerry looked like, but we do know they were all similar in age. Kerry was just 15. Wendy and Kelly were 14. We did find an address in Fullerton. We found an address in Anaheim. The thing is that the Fullerton address, I traced that from where that house is to where Kerry went missing. It's only 4 miles.
Oof.
And not only that, where Kerry's body was found is less than 10 miles from where he lived in Fullerton.
And how far was Kerry's body found that Kelly and Wendy were?
Between where Kelly,
where he took Kelly.
Yes, where Kelly was sexually assaulted, and where Wendy, her remains are found, and where Kerry's remains were found, were less than 6 miles.
That's crazy.
The timeline, that was throwing me off, though. He didn't kidnap Wendy and sexually assault her until 1987. Kelly was kidnapped in 1988, right?
Yeah.
So now we found the Fullerton connection. We found the similarities between the girls. We found the similarities between the remains site. We found the similarities with the construction worker. But how are we going back to 1980? Like, he committed these crimes in 87 and 88. Who's to say he was doing these things way back in 1980?
Yeah.
So he was born in 1961. So in 1980, he would only be 19. We can find him in Fullerton, but he's 19. Was he doing these things back when he was 19? So I went back to the article about the parents. So it says, and I'm just going to read it to you. Despite his son's travels, Ray Bartlett does not think his son is capable of murder. He's just the last person in the world you would suspect or think would do something like that. He said he's not a real mean person at all. He's always been really good to his nieces and nephews, which is going to make you gag in about 3 seconds. Last year, one of Raymond J. Bartlett's nieces told the family that he had molested her 14 years earlier. So this article was written in 1995. She had told them a year earlier that he had raped her 14 years prior. What year is that?
Oh, God. It should be like 1980-ish, right?
It's exactly 1980. So now we put him in Fullerton. We put him molesting his own niece in 1980. It all starts to make sense, right?
Yeah.
This article, just as a side note, Raymond J. Bartlett's 6 siblings are divided by the accusation of murder, his mother said. Some don't believe it, but one sister fears he will escape from custody and harm her. It's torn the whole family apart. When asked what she thinks of the accusation, his mother pauses before she speaks. I will always love him. I will always support him, but if he's guilty of this crime, I think he should be in prison where he can't hurt anyone else. I don't know if he's guilty or not. That's up to the court. So I had to read that. I mean, clearly his family is delusional.
Well, his own sister is scared of him, but his dad is like, he's a nice, kind man.
Yeah, he's not mean. He's not a mean person, is what his dad said exactly.
Yes.
So now we know that all the things connect together. He was in Fullerton, construction worker, new developments for the 2 of the girls were walking out of an area that had new housing developments. Their bodies were found only 6 miles apart. He only lived 4 miles from where Kerry went missing. I mean,
it's a lot.
It's a lot. And now I can see how someone would refer Wendy Osborn's case to the Kerry Patterson case.
So
I don't know. The thing is I don't know if the girls looked alike. There's just still too many coincidences, I think.
Have you talked to Bob about all this?
I did. I talked to Bob last night, and we were talking about Carbon Canyon and Toner Canyon not being very far, and I gave him all the different information that I found. And I asked him if he thought I was just a psycho armchair detective. And he said no. He said that there's significant reasons for the two cases. There's enough similarities.
Yeah.
So now it's his job to find out where, if he can. I mean, he has access to things that we don't, like DMV records and things like that, to find out if he really did live in 1980 in Fullerton. We suspect he did, but we don't know for a fact. The second thing is he'll be able to maybe get job records, maybe. I don't know if he can or not.
That's what is so frustrating to me about this always, but especially now, is if we have this guy's name and we know who's in construction, like, to me, maybe it's because I grew up in the age of technology and computers and databases, but I feel like you should be able to find out who the builder was on that new track for all three of them, I guess, but especially Kerry, and be able to search who it was, and it's this guy, and was he working on this track, and was he an employee of yours? Like, it just seems like it should be something that can happen.
Well, and that's the thing. That's the reason why they put out the press release. That's the reason why we're doing the podcast. Because people don't know what they know.
Yeah.
So like someone listening to this or someone who sees the article in the paper or the thing on the news can be like, oh, I worked for a development company back in 1980 that was part of the homes that were being built in Fullerton.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a guy named Ray that worked with me. I mean, the thing is he was convicted of rape in 1988. So like, if he worked somewhere in 1980, how many people knew, like, if he wasn't working for the same place? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if someone from my work right now, I found out raped someone or murdered someone, and like, I would be all over it. I would remember that. But if he had changed jobs over the years, people don't know what they don't know. People don't know what they know in regards to things like that. That's why it's so important when you think of something like, if someone's listening right now whose dad or uncle or brother worked for a construction company that was working in Fullerton in 1980, ask them if they knew someone named Ray Bartlett. Like, you don't know what you know unless these kinds of things come out, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I just encourage, if you think you know anything, just call. Like, who knows? If Kerry's case is related to Wendy Osborn's case and Raymond Bartlett did it, like, could Michelle and Crystal get the answers they're looking for? We don't know yet.
Yeah.
But people always stop themselves. They don't want to get involved, or they don't want to say something that's not accurate. But now we have a name. If you worked for a construction company that was working in Fullerton or Placentia or Chino Hills during 1980, 1987, or 1988, or you know someone who did, ask them if they knew Ray Bartlett. If they can put Ray Bartlett in the same place that Kerry Patterson was, maybe people who have been waiting 42 years for an answer might get it, you know?
Right. Have you talked to Michelle about it all?
I called Michelle last night because I didn't want to put this episode out without telling her first. I think that would be kind of weird for her. We haven't spoken. I don't think Michelle and I have spoken for almost a year now.
Yeah.
But I didn't want an episode, but we follow each other on Facebook. I mean, we're in direct contact with each other anyways. We follow each other on social media, but I didn't want her to hear all this information that connects it to another case that I don't think she had heard about, and she had not. When I called her last night and asked her if she had ever heard of the Wendy Osborn case, she had not heard of it. So, and I don't know that Bob had either, because again, it was Riverside County, San Bernardino County. It hadn't connected to the Orange County Sheriff yet. So Bob didn't know about it either. And then Michelle certainly didn't know about it. So when I told her all the similarities and all the connections, she was interested. She asked me for a picture of Raymond Bartlett, and I actually just found one this morning at like 6:30 this morning. I was scrolling and two people that do searches for people, hopefully not mass murderers or serial killers, but if you're looking for your own family or working on your family tree, like I always encourage everyone to do, make sure that you don't just search by a full name. Like I was looking for Raymond J. Bartlett. I changed the search to Ray Bartlett, and it came up with his high school yearbook picture.
Yeah.
So I didn't find it till today. Michelle asked me last night to send it to Christy, who is our psychic medium who had read for Michelle back when we had done the episodes.
I was going to ask you about that because I remember we did that walk with her and everything. Like if she has notes and stuff that we could relate back to.
Well, she does. And not only that, I had sent her a picture and I didn't say anything. All I did just like an hour ago, I sent her the high school picture of Raymond J. Bartlett. And so he would be the age in this photo was taken in 1979. So he would look pretty much the same as he did in 1980 when Kerry went missing.
Right.
I sent her a picture and I just wrote any thoughts. She wrote back and said associated with Kerry ?
Ooh. Which, by the way, she's done multiple cases with us. It wouldn't, not just that one.
Right. And she said, tell me if I'm correct or not. I will dig deeper and I'll let you know. But all I did was write back yes. But yeah, she picked, we've done 3 cases with her, 4. She weighed in a little bit on Deborah Kidwell, but she definitely did Deborah Pajolka. She walked with Bob and I for Kerry's case, and she weighed in on Dorothy Scott. So I sent her random pictures all the time, and she wrote back.
Specifically Kerry.
Yeah, associated with Kerry ?
It's crazy.
I know. So we'll see. There's more to the story. Again, Bob has to do his job. He'll be able to do a lot more things than we can do. If you have any tips or information, like I said, no, people don't know what they know. You have no idea what information you have. And someone else maybe can be able to connect things together that you aren't aware of. Right, Haley?
Yeah.
Raymond J. Bartlett died in prison on November 26, 2006. He was 45 years old. I can't find his cause of death or which prison he was at the time of his death. Bartlett was 3 months away from parole on the sentence he had received from Kelly's rape case when the DNA came back convicting him of Wendy Osborn's case. He was sentenced to life for murder. The follow-up for any more connections between the cases of Wendy and Kelly and a possible link to Kerry Patterson is ongoing. But as always, if you have any information or believe you may know something, regardless of how small it is, please call Bob Taft at 714-647-7045, or you can contact OC Crime Stoppers anonymously at 855-847-6227 or online at occrimestoppers.org. Thank you for listening to this episode of Haunting History Podcast. We love hearing from you, so be sure to like, follow, and comment on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Haunting History Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to all your favorites.
Visit our website at hauntinghistorypodcast.com for more information on each episode, links to our Patreon page, and all of our social media platforms.
Until next time, I'm Kat.
I'm Haley.
Remember, the living are far scarier than any ghost.
Early nominating contests build momentum for 2024 contenders seeking the White House. C-SPAN is the place for political campaign enthusiasts, with unfiltered coverage surrounding the early primaries and caucuses, as well as speeches from key battleground states. Whether you're interested in your state's race or want to follow all of the political events, you can get immediate access to what the candidates are saying, plus nominating results in real time with the free mobile app, C-SPAN Now, or watch live on the C-SPAN networks.
TaxAct knows you don't look forward to taxes. TaxAct doesn't even look forward to taxes, and TaxAct is a tax software company. It's basically TaxAct's whole thing. If TaxAct did things over, maybe TaxAct would end up teaching kindergarten or leading fly fishing tours. But that's a different story for a different ad. So why don't we just agree that taxes aren't fun, but you still have to do them? TaxAct's filing software can help you do that. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
Hey parents, Greenlight is here to take one big thing off your to-do list, teaching your kids about money. With a Greenlight debit card and money app of their own, kids and teens learn to earn, save, and invest. You can send money instantly, set flexible controls, and get real-time notifications of your kids' money activity. set up chores, and put allowance on autopilot to reward them for their hard work. Then learn about the world of money together. Get 1 month free when you sign up at greenlight.com/podcast.